Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public hearing of Monday, September the 27th. We have two of them tonight. I will call the meeting to order by reading out this public hearing statement. These public hearings are being held pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act. All members of the public will be given a reasonable time to be heard or to be present, or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaws that are the subject of these hearings. All information, correspondence, petitions, or reports that have been received by noon today concerning the subject bylaws have been circulated to council and are available to the public as part of the meeting package. For each public hearing, staff will provide their report, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to speak. Members of the public who have pre-registered to speak have been added to the speakers list in the order that requests were received. Anyone who is not pre-registered may call into the conference line during the live meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. I will provide an opportunity for public comment according to the speakers list, followed by comment from those who have just joined the meeting. Speakers will be asked to state their name and civic address. Please note that all representations, whether written, in person, or electronic, are available to the public for viewing as part of the public record. Remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker and should include all of the relevant information in the presentation. Further opportunity will be afforded to all members of the public to speak a second or third time with new information only once all persons have had an opportunity to speak. Council may ask questions of staff, the applicant, and the public, but once the public hearing is closed, no new information can be received. Council debate on the bylaw will take place during the regular council meeting following the conclusion of the public hearing. The corporate officer will now provide information on the notice of these public hearings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Notice of the public hearings was given by posting on the notice board at Municipal Hall and on the district's website and advertising in the Summerland Review issues of September 16th, 2021 and September 23rd, 2021. In addition, for public hearing number 1, 24 notices were mailed to owners and occupiers of surrounding properties on September 15th, 2021. For public hearing number 2, 48 notices were mailed to owners and occupiers of surrounding properties on September 14th, 2021.
Thank you. So we'll start now with public hearing number 1, 3.1 on our agenda. It is an official community plan amendment, bylaw number 2021-008, and zoning bylaw amendment number 2021-009 at 48108 Purves Road, Z 21-003, and Alex Costin is going to give the staff presentation.
All right, thank you, Council. An application to amend the official community plan future land use designation at 8108 Purves Road from low-density residential to low-density residential intensification, and for a site-specific text amendment to the zoning bylaw to allow for the subdivision of 8108 Purves Road was considered by Council for first and second reading on August 9th, 2021. Council then scheduled a public hearing for Monday, September 27th for the public to comment on official community plan amendment number 2021-008 and zoning bylaw amendment number 2021-009. The property is currently designated as low-density residential under Summerland's official community plan. The need to amend this designation is a result of the proposed density of the duplex development. The proposal calls for a density of 28 units per hectare. However, the low-density residential designation only allows for up to a maximum of 22 units per hectare. Amending the future land use designation of the property to low-density residential intensification allows for a density of up to 28 units, and as such satisfies the required density of the development proposal. The subject property is located in a mature neighborhood mostly consistent of older single detached homes. The lot and other adjacent lots along Pervez Road are zoned RDH, residential duplex housing, and designated for future duplex and single-family infill development. The zone requires a minimum lot area of 850 square meters and a minimum lot width of 25 meters when subdividing for duplex housing. These specifications are generally geared towards promoting the development of side-by-side duplex units and on lots zoned and sized accordingly. The subject property at 8108 Pervez Road is disadvantaged in several ways. First, despite the zoning designation to allow for duplex housing, the lot is a challenging size and shape. It is not large enough to meet the subdivision regulations that would allow for 2 duplex buildings. However, siting 1 duplex building on the lot would be an inefficient use of land given the area it's in. Second, the property abuts Bloomfield Road in addition to Pervez, which would provide an adequate frontage for 2 side-by-side duplex units if fronting that road. However, the grade change between the street and the lot is too significant to facilitate this development. These traits have led the developer to pursue an alternative front-to-back duplex design. The concept calls for an individual front-to-back duplex building to be sited on each newly created duplex zoned lot. 2 of the 4 units would front onto Pervez Road, while 2 of the rear units would be accessed from a rear parking area. The two separated parking areas contain all 8 required parking stalls for the proposed development. Lot A is proposed to have an easement over Lot B to access 2 of the 4 proposed stalls that are accessed off Bloomfield. Front-to-back duplex units tend to work best for double frontage lots. Ideally, each duplex unit should be oriented towards a street with a front door facing the street, and thus avoiding the front of a home looking into the rear yard of another home. In the case of 8108 Pervez Road, it is impossible to achieve this. Although the 2 rear units will not front onto a street, it should be noted that they will not front onto the backyard of another lot either, and instead front onto Highway 97. Policies and objectives within the official community plan generally direct growth to areas with existing services available that are close to amenities. This is an efficient and cost-effective approach to growth and development for the municipality, while helping to achieve density targets that support transit, cycling, and walking as viable alternatives to the private automobile. The official community plan also includes objectives and policies directed at diversifying housing options and providing more affordable options. These goals are in line with the 2017 Affordable Summerland Report, which specifies the importance and current lack of housing diversity within the District of Summerland. The report identifies Summerland's housing stock as overwhelmingly single detached housing, and that much of the limited alternative housing forms that exist within the district are reaching the end of their lifespan. The proposed subdivision and duplex development at 8108 Pervez Road would help achieve these goals outlined in the official community plan. The duplexes would add to Summerland's stock of alternative housing options, ensure a more affordable housing form compared to single detached housing, and allows for infill development in a service neighborhood by adding 4 duplex units on a lot that currently has 1 single detached home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. I'll go back to our corporate officer and ask if she could bring us up to date on the correspondence on this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we had one submission received on September 23rd in support of the application with 11 signatures, and two additional submissions, one submitted on June 14th and another submitted on September 23rd, not supporting the proposed applications.
Thank you. Just want to check and see if Matt Briscoe and Llewellyn Lloyd are with us tonight, the applicants. Oh, great. Thank you. This is your opportunity to address the public hearing if you wish, Mr. Lloyd. Are you Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Yes, this proposal is designed to make the best use of the property that we've been able to develop according to with the bylaws. There's quite a need to have affordable housing in Summerland. And this development proposal is the closest that we could come to something that would fit into the neighborhood. It encourages a sense of ownership with young families, a lower cost alternative, affordable housing. We've gone through this plan quite extensively to try and develop something that would fit into the neighborhood. And because of its proximity to the downtown core, it would be something that would fit into this neighborhood more adeptly, especially since there are schools nearby. Young families would be able to take advantage of this lower cost housing. It's not that it's low cost housing, it's more affordable housing, something that Summerland really needs at this time. There are many benefits to the location of this because it's so close to walking and cycling paths. There's so many infrastructure things that are accessible and nearby. There is near to shopping as well. So we feel that this really fits into this neighborhood.
Thank you very much. I don't have on my speaking list, if there is anybody in the public realm that would like to speak to this. I'll ask a second time.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sorry, just go ahead. Yeah, my name is Roland Barron. I live at 8112 Purvis Road. I live at the adjacent property to the project or the rezoning in question. I support the project. I have no objections to it. I've been here for 20 some odd years, and I think it would be a good service to the town. I think we need more affordable housing. If I could put more places on my property, I would for more affordable housing. So if someone has a plan to do it, I think I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kendra, did you catch the gentleman's last name? You did. Good. Thank you.
Okay, there.
Thank you very much. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay, I'll ask again in a moment. I guess with your favor there, you don't have any questions for Mr. Lloyd to answer. So I'll ask council if you have questions of either the applicant or staff. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I have a question for staff, if I may. I'm just wondering what's the land right behind the lot is. That it's a hill dropping down from the highway, but is that privately owned or I presume it's undevelopable, whatever it is.
So through the chair, those two parcels of land, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm almost 100% sure on this, are owned by the Ministry of Transportation. And yeah, as such, that they would be undevelopable. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Barkwell.
I can answer that question because there used to be a house on the corner there, and when the highway expanded, they took out that house and left those little pieces of lot. It's almost too bad that they couldn't have been added to the lot under consideration here, but guess not.
Any more questions, council? There'll be another opportunity in just a moment. I just want to make sure that everyone that is in the public that wishes to speak at this public hearing is given another opportunity. Is there anyone online? All right. Council, do you have any other questions to ask staff or the applicant? Okay. So I will declare that public hearing number 1 is closed then. Now we'll go on to the second public hearing. 5.1 zoning bylaw amendment number 2021-031 for 10518 Jubilee Road West, Z21-007. Joanne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this zoning amendment bylaw number 2021-031 is to change the zoning designation of the subject property at 10518 Jubilee Road West from residential medium lot, so RSD1, to residential medium density RMD. The RMD zone would allow for multiple units on the property in the form of townhouses, apartments, duplex, or cluster housing in conformance with that zone. And council provided first and second reading of this bylaw on August 9th, 2021. So this property is approximately 2,266 square meters and currently contains a single detached dwelling. The property fronts Jubilee Road West, Spencer Avenue, and Dixon Avenue. And this property is located on the periphery of downtown Summerland and is currently designated as medium density residential in the official community plan. And as I mentioned, has a current zoning of RSD1. So the proposed zoning is shown here on dark brown to go to a residential medium density. And you can see that there are other similar zones within that area. So just to give a quick comparison of the existing zoning versus the proposed zone. So the RMD zone allows for apartment, cluster housing, duplex, and townhouse uses, which are not currently permitted under the existing zoning, which only allows for single detached or manufactured housing type 1 as a permitted principal use. So the RMD zone also allows for taller buildings up to 3 stories compared to the 2 stories permitted in the RSD1 zone, and a slightly higher maximum floor area ratio, as well as a larger minimum lot area required for subdivision. It's also noted that there is an amenity space requirement for each dwelling under the proposed zone. So the applicant is requesting the zoning to facilitate a multifamily development of a 4-unit townhouse. So that's conceptually illustrated on these renderings here. So this proposal does align with the OCP as well as the downtown neighborhood plan. But I will just mention that the renderings are conceptual only, as the site or building design may change. So this parcel is located within the urban growth area in Summerland, and this rezoning would enable intensification of the residential use by allowing more residential units to be built on the site. It also allows for more compact development to occur close to the downtown and in an area with servicing and pedestrian connectivity. Allowing additional units near the downtown is seen as supporting the vibrancy of the downtown, as more residents are within walking distance to shops, parks, and amenities. The current zoning of RSD1 only allows for 1 principal dwelling unit, which is a lesser density than what is supported under the medium density residential OCP designation. So this designation seeks to provide a range of housing types and choices and supports a density range of about 23 to 60 units per hectare. So on this parcel, that would equate to about 2 to 5 units based on the parcel size. And as I mentioned, the applicant intends to build a 4-unit townhouse at this location. So changing the zoning designation to RMD is consistent with the OCP designation here. If this rezoning did occur, the multiple family development permit area will apply. It automatically applies to all multiple family uses, and the form, siding, and character of the proposed development will be evaluated in relation to the design guidelines in the OCP. So in summary, this is a zoning amendment bylaw that would allow for medium density development to occur at the property located at 10518 Jubilee Road West. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. I'll go back to you, Kendra, if you could let us know what correspondence that's been received on this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No public submissions were received.
Thank you. And now is the opportunity for the applicant to speak. Is either Jonathan Bowman or Tony Giroux with us, or Giroux perhaps with us today?
Yeah, I'm Tony Giroux with Giroux Design
Thank
Group.
you.
Yeah, that's fine. Both
Okay,
are
please go
acceptable.
ahead.
Yeah, so I think the proposal is a good one. It's a great area of town for a multi-family development. The renderings that you saw earlier are essentially what we will be submitting for development permit application, although the staff has asked us to make a few adjustments, which we'll do. We did invite the neighbors to a meeting to discuss the project and any concerns, and we put it in the newspaper as required, but we didn't have any of the neighbors show up. That was a Zoom meeting that was scheduled, and so we did look for some feedback, but I think overall everyone kind of accepts it's a great location for a multi-family project like that. So I'm here to answer any questions that might be held. But I just wanted to state that with this development, as well as with the other one previously, affordable housing and housing in general is a massive social issue that we're facing in our communities, not just Summerland, but the whole South Okanagan and really the whole country. So opportunities like these to increase density in a thoughtful way are excellent opportunities to give the housing that's so badly needed for our communities.
Thank you. Is there anybody online, whether through Zoom or on the telephone, that wishes to speak to this public hearing? Okay, I'll ask one more time now and then again later. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the public hearing from the public? All right, council, it's your opportunity to ask questions of staff or of Mr. Giroux. I don't see anybody looking to answer or ask questions, so I will ask for the third and final time if there's anyone online or on the Zoom conference that wishes to speak to this public hearing. Okay, seeing none, I will declare that this public hearing is closed. Thank you. Okay, call to order for our regular evening council meeting of Monday, September the 27th. This meeting is being recorded live and is streaming. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways. Watch the meeting live or recorded at the District of Summerland YouTube channel, youtube.District of Summerland. You can register in advance to speak during the meeting if you haven't done that, but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities. You can connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. After I have provided everyone who is pre-registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be open to those on the conference line. Corporate Officer, are there any late items to introduce?
There are no late items for this agenda.
Thank you. So, Council, could we have adoption of the agenda, please? Councillor Van Elfen and Holmes, all in favor? Oh, to the agenda? Okay, please.
Just for the record, nothing major, but under information items 3.1B, the RDOS report should be August 19th, not August 9. Just for the record.
All right. So I'll call the question on the adoption of the minutes, of the agenda. All in favor? Okay. And now adoption of the minutes for August the 23rd. Councillor Holmes, Councillor Patton, all in favor? Thank you. Now moving right on to the bylaws from the public hearings that we just heard. First one, 5.1, Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 2021-008 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment number 2021-009 for 8108 Purvis Road, Z21003. Oops. Sorry, I'm just bringing up my agenda. All right, so we've had first and second reading in the public hearing now. You've had the opportunity to ask questions. We've heard from the applicant. So all there is left to do is to bring forward a resolution on this matter. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The official community plan amendment bylaw number 2021-008 at 8108 Purvis Road be read a third time, and that zoning bylaw amendment 8108 Purvis Road bylaw number 2021-009 be read a third time.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Seconder, Councillor Patton. Are you preparing to vote? No. Okay. Did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just note that there are some letters of opposition, and one of the concerns in there is with regards to the condition of the road and the potential for increased traffic, but also construction traffic. I'm wondering if through this process, any improvements to that infrastructure will be required of the developer.
Yeah, in accordance with our subdivision development servicing bylaw, the developer will be required to repave up to the center line of the road and also install anything that would be required in accordance with that bylaw up to that center line.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barkwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was a little bit surprised to see the petition and they're against this because I'm very familiar with the neighborhood. I grew up right there or very close. Walked that street many times. I just don't see how the addition of a few more units in that location could impact the neighborhood in any meaningful way. Dead ends at the end of a dead end street. Hardly any traffic to begin with. That's going to provide affordable housing. Next to the highway, of course, it'll be cheaper because that's how it works. There's lots actually more space there than on the lot. The residents will actually enjoy the space of the district or the highway owned lots that are right there. Nobody actually sees the property line on the ground. And so it's equivalent of it's a good space. So I'm a little bit surprised, and but it also has the support of the immediate neighbor, and I think I'm quite comfortable with it.
Okay, Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just kudos to the developer. It doesn't look like it was an easy lot to plan out. And I'm sure that kudos also go to our planning staff because I'm sure they were extremely involved in trying to make this, possibly go forward. It's exactly what we need in Summerland is the infill and higher density and affordable housing units. So my hat's off to everyone involved. Thank you to making this happen.
Anyone else? I certainly agree with those councillors that have spoken up. I will call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, so that carries unanimously. Thank you, Alex. And now we'll move on to our second public hearing of this evening. 5.2 Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number 2021-031 for 10518 Jubilee Road West, Z21-007. And again, we just heard this public hearing and questions were asked. No, we didn't have any questions. Questions were not asked. We had a presentation by the applicant and now we're looking at third reading. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the official community plan amendment bylaw number 2021-00. Oh, sorry.
The next one.
Next one. Yes, I apologize. The zoning bylaw amendment 10518 Jubilee Road West, bylaw number 2021-031 be read a third time.
Thank you, Councillor Patton. Councillor Barkwell, you're seconding. Okay. Any further discussion on this one? I think it's an echo of the same thing as from before. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do hope that the developer does go through with the building of this. It's being so close to downtown core. It's phenomenal. But we all know that the money's in the zoning, And again, I do hope that it does proceed and we don't see a for sale sign on the lot in the near future after the zoning goes through. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. So that's unanimous as well. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, on to item 6, the mayor's report. Apologize in advance, it's a little long tonight. But I am beginning my report with a few good news stories. The first is the life-saving measures of the district's 2 bylaw officers, Dan Maya and Darren Krell. Saving the life of a resident is hardly a daily operational duty, but Dan and Darren took it in stride, using their first aid training to save the life of a resident. Summerland Ambulance Unit Chief Tom Ratcliffe honored the 2 men September 17th for their efforts. On behalf of council, thank you, Dan and Darren, for going above and beyond the call of duty, and my personal thanks to Councillor Aaron Carlson for attending the recognition event on my behalf. Thanks, Aaron. Secondly, congratulations to Lindsay Craig, the winner of a $750 check, I guess, for WaterWise yard upgrades. Ms. Craig made an online pledge to conserve outdoor water use as part of the 2021 Make Water Work campaign. Thank you for participating in the campaign. And Summerland came second in the community campaign behind the District of Peachland. And Mayor Fortin, I have read your comments, and we will perhaps get you next year. The third piece of good news is that the District of Summerland has been presented with the 2021 Climate and Energy Action Award for our low carbon and renewable energy project implementation. The award was presented by the Community Energy Association, CEA, who since 1998 has worked in partnership with the province, Union of BC Municipalities, BC Hydro, Fortis BC, and the Real Estate Foundation of BC. The district's award is in the corporate operations category, which profiles local governments that know how to, quote, walk the walk and are demonstrated leaders when it comes to implementing their own work. Administration is working with CEA to organize a formal presentation of the award. Finally, the district has achieved milestones 2 and 3 in the Partners for Climate Protection program called PCP. The program is a national network of over 400 municipalities with a shared goal of taking action against climate change and reducing local greenhouse gas emissions. PCP is managed and delivered by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and ICLEI Canada, which stands for Local Governments for Sustainability in Canada. As PCP members achieve milestones such as developing, then implementing local action plans, they receive another puzzle piece. And so I'm going to show you the puzzle pieces. Here's the little award. It says Partners for Climate Protection, District of Summerland. This was milestone 1. This is the grass. And I practiced this, so hopefully it won't take me 10 minutes to get these puzzle pieces in tonight. Milestone 2 is the sun, which is perfect for sunny Summerland. And milestone 3, there we go, are buildings. Low carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions buildings. So there we go. We have a couple more milestones to get. All right. In January 2021, CAO Stat, the then corporate officer Karen Needham and myself were invited by South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services to work with the Respect Network on addressing racism in our communities. The Unbox initiative has recently started in collaboration with the Okanagan Regional Library in Summerland and Osoyoos and the Penticton Public Library. Unbox focuses on the experiences of racism by new immigrants and other racialized community members. It encourages participants to conduct an audit of their local community and identify areas that preserve racial inequities embedded in our society. Unbox also provides the opportunity to enhance knowledge and appreciation for various cultures in our town. Visit soics.ca for more information and to register for an unbox. You may have noticed the harvest displays in district planters, on light posts, and in other areas of the downtown. These imaginative and attractive displays are created and installed by Therese Washtalk and Peter Holler with coordination assistance from Fall Fair President Denise McDonald. Councillor Richard Barkwell also helps out, and in his words, he's on the pick it up and take it home crew. Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. These displays extend the Summerland Fall Fair beyond the activities held yesterday, as does the 2021 photo showcase. Thank you all for the 2021 celebration of agriculture. I know it's a lot of work at an already busy time of year. The 118th Union of BC Municipalities, UBCM, convention is over for another year. This year's theme was Obstacles to Opportunities. Panel discussions and resolutions reflected matters that are top of mind in local governments across the province: attainable housing, reconciliation, health matters such as mental health, COVID-19 and the opioid crisis, climate action, and post-pandemic economic recovery. Summerland Council had meetings with the ministers and staff of Agriculture, Food and Fisheries, Municipal Affairs, and Jobs, Economic Recovery and Innovation. Lastly, this Thursday is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. As I heard the Honorable Murray Sinclair say in an interview on Saturday, on September 30th, take the time to learn something about Indigenous people that you don't know today. In recognition of this day and Council's commitment to reconciliation, district flags will be at half-mast. And if you've noticed, there are three of us here. Half of us here are wearing orange shirts, and that's in recognition of Truth and Reconciliation, and also Orange Shirt Day, which is typically the color that you wear on the last day of UBCM, on close to the end of September. So thank you very much for that. Over to you, CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll start my report today with a bit of a staffing update for Council. First, I would like to officially introduce our new Director of Works and Infrastructure, Joe Mitchell. Joe is a civil engineer and a longtime resident of Summerland. He comes to us from the district of Peachland, where he worked for many years, holding senior roles in the organization, including Director of Works and also Chief Administrative Officer. Secondly, I wanted to let Council know that we have conducted interviews for the Sustainability and Alternative Energy Coordinator role last week. A number of qualified candidates applied, and we are working on the second stage of the competition with the goal of making a final hiring decision within the next couple of weeks. We were glad to rescind the campfire ban effective September 23rd at noon. Also to reopen Giants Head Mountain Park to vehicle traffic the day prior, and also to move water restrictions back to stage 1 a few days before that. These changes mark a shift to a lower risk status for the district after a very dry summer and dry conditions associated with high heat and hot weather. Thank you to all residents for helping implement these measures to ensure a state of safety and resiliency for the district. On September 22nd, I had the opportunity to personally attend the Eisentalk Dam site and observe the significant work that is occurring to replace the antiquated outlet pipe and to armor the face of the structure from weathering elements into the future. Jim Dent Construction is doing a remarkable job and has made lots of progress in a very short period. I was impressed with the professionalism of the site crew, the focus on safety, and the overall clean condition of the site. A drone video can be seen on the district Facebook page that shows the extent of the project from an aerial view, and it is worth watching. On the same theme of infrastructure improvements, the pathway lighting planned for installation along the Lakeshore Pathway has seen some vendor material delays. This is not an uncommon occurrence in the supply chain right now, given continued COVID impacts. We have been told that we can expect delivery in the next couple of weeks. Once the poles and lights arrive, we will ensure they are installed as a priority. We will be upgrading the lighting all the way to the yacht club with LED lighting to provide better and more efficient illumination than the previous light fixtures. We know that days are getting shorter, so we appreciate the patience of those who use the pathway and are looking forward to providing a much better lighting situation very soon. In the meantime, please consider adjusting the time of day you use the trail, or bring a flashlight with you if you plan to be out there in the twilight or evening hours to avoid any tripping or slipping hazards. Finally, I wanted to remind Council that in honor of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th, all district Summerland facilities will be closed except for the fire department and select arena bookings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for our CAO? Okay. So now on to the first of two public comment opportunities, 8.1. I understand that Mr. Drance, are you there, Mr. Drance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, please state your name and your civic address. And I understand that you are speaking to item 9.6 on the agenda.
Yes, it's Michael Drance. Address is 527-12811 Lakeshore Drive, Summerland. And I had a question regarding the monthly development report.
Pardon me, that's 9.5. Sorry, that was my mistake.
That's okay.
9.5.
In keeping with your newly adopted code of ethics, I'm wondering how would somebody find out whether you're being sued over a development issue, or if someone found one of your decisions unreasonable and had there's a judicial review taking place? Would that be in that report?
In the development services report?
Right.
Not typically. That's
where would that be? How would the public find out about that?
Legal matters are held in confidence between the parties. That's the way that the legal matters have to work. I will defer to the corporate officer, though, if she would like to speak further on that, because she knows more about that than I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, legal matters are matters that are privileged to, or that have solicitor-client privilege, are protected both under the Community Charter and the Freedom of Information Act. So if the district were in a situation that a matter is before the courts, that information would be protected under one of those acts.
I understand that there are things that are protected, and the things that are protected are communications between your lawyer and the District of Summerland. Other than that, this is a public record, and is the general public not entitled to know whether you're being sued or people find your decisions unreasonable?
Mr. Drance, the opportunity for the public to comment on something that is on the agenda is not an opportunity to have debate with members of council or staff. So while I appreciate your comment, you have kind of gone a little bit further than typically we would expect at this time during our agenda. You've asked a question and it's been answered, and we will move on from there.
I suggest you're not actually, don't appreciate my comment whatsoever, because you're not being transparent.
Item 9.1 is development reports. Development variance permit 11507 Blair Street, DVP 20-031.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So an application was received for a development variance permit to reduce the minimum required rear setback from 7.0 meters to 4.0 meters at 11507 Blair Street. So the purpose of the variance is to facilitate the siting of a modular unit that forms part of a building for temporary farm worker housing. And the modular unit has been sited on the property as shown here, but has not yet been connected to the rest of the building. So the subject property is designated as agricultural in the official community plan and is zoned agricultural small acreage, A1, with site-specific provisions to allow for temporary farm worker housing. So council may recognize this property from the rezoning application that occurred to allow for that site-specific provision, and also from the subsequent development variance permit to reduce the setback along Washington Avenue to facilitate the siting of these modular units. So the original configuration is shown here, which connects all 11 of the modular units together, mostly in a row across the property. And the applicant has made changes to that site plan. They've reconfigured that building as there was a miscalculation that they didn't account for the bumpers between the modular units when they were creating their calculations as to how long that building would be. So they could not fit all of them in a row as originally designed, and one of them was sited at an angle on the property. So as you can see in the site plan, the green area is the proposed variance reduction from the 7 meters to the 4 meters, and there is a portion of the building that that goes to 4 meters. Which obviously does not meet the required setback. However, it does, it is consistent with the standard minimum for an interior side setback, which is in the A1 zone, which is 4 meters, and it's a similar distance from what the abutting parcel is to the property line. It also has minimal windows on that side and is kind of oriented so that the abutting parcel does not have major loss of privacy. So it is a requirement of the site-specific zoning for the 11 modular units to be configured as one building, which they're trying to accommodate on the site given their miscalculations. So for that reason, the applicant has provided a roof connection plan between Unit 2, which is the one that requires a variance, and Unit 7, which is also demonstrated on the elevation drawings here. So the staff recommendation is that the variance be approved as proposed to vary the rear setback from 7.0 meters to 4.0 meters. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through the staff, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the property directly to the south where this variance will be required is also owned by the same individual. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. You're correct.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? Did you want to bring forward the, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh, where am I? Sorry. That council authorizes assurance of development variance permit DVP 20-031 for property located at 11507 Blair Street, legally described as Lot 2, District Lot 3640, Associates Division Yale District Plan 8287, and that a variance to the following sections of zoning bylaw 2000-450 be granted. Rear setback section 8.1.6 AII to vary rear setback from 7 meters to 4 meters proposed.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Seconder, Councillor Barkwell. And discussion on this. Councillor Van Elfen.
I appreciate, again, I can't believe I'm keep saying thank you to staff, but this makes so much sense. You know, they're asking for a slight variance to accommodate another unit on this. The whole lot is proposed for farm workers camp. And I think it's an ideal location. Sure, the density is a little bit higher, but, and the, you know, asking for the variance, but I'd rather see them all on that one lot than spread around throughout the properties. And it's much easier for the farm owner because they're going to be using this camp, I believe, 3 months out of the year. So the other 9 months out of the year when the camp is not being utilized, it's going to be easy for them to secure it and keep it, you know, safe, and everyone's at the same location and all the amenities are in these trailers. So it's an ideal location. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion or comment? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thanks, Joanne. On to Development Variance Permit 12506, Quinn Pool Road, DVP 21-002, and this is Alex.
Thank you. So the district has received an application for variance at 12506 Quinn Pool Road. The proposal seeks to vary the maximum available coverage within the farm home plate and the minimum required side exterior setback to facilitate an addition to a single detached home. The subject property is an agricultural lot just northwest of downtown Summerland. The applicant is proposing to construct a small residential addition to an existing single detached dwelling on the property. In the OCP, the future land use designation of the subject property is agricultural, and it is zoned A1 agricultural small acreage. These land uses are consistent with neighboring parcels to the north. However, more urban residential zoning designations are present to the east and south. It should be noted that the property is located within the agricultural land reserve. No approval is required. However, a referral was submitted to the Agricultural Land Commission and a response was received. ALC staff stated that provided the total floor area of the residence remains less than 500 square meters, they have no objection to the proposed addition. Further, they noted that the reduction in setback proposed is on the south side of the property and is not adjacent to the ALR, and as such, they also have no objection to that. Zoning bylaw section 8.1.5C limits the lot coverage up to 35% within the farm home plate. The farm home plate in the zoning bylaw regulation is meant to limit the residential usage of agricultural properties. Specifically, a farm home plate is defined by the zoning bylaw as a 905 square meter portion of an agricultural lot where a residence and other structures related to that residential usage are permitted. The remainder of the agricultural lot outside of the farm home plate is meant to be used for agricultural purposes. The owners have applied to increase the amount of allowable coverage from 35 to 43% of the farm home plate to allow for their proposed addition. The subject property is currently used for agricultural and residential purposes. Mountain View Growers leases and occupies a significant portion of the property for their silviculture operations. The existing farm home plate at 12506 Quinn Pool Road is well contained on the property. being buffered by large cedar trees from the agricultural operation. The existing home already exceeds the bylaw allowance for farm home plate coverage, measuring at 351 square meters or 39% coverage within the farm home plate. The home was constructed in 1976 prior to A1 regulations being in place for farm home plate coverage. The applicant is requesting to increase the allowable coverage within the farm home plate due to the homeowners wishing to age in place. Plans for the addition include a larger handicapped accessible washroom, an accessible storage closet, and accessible sleeping accommodations. The building addition will also provide space for in-home assisted living should they require that in the future. The existing home is already 351 square meters and exceeds the allowable coverage for dwellings within the farm home plate. Allowing this small addition to the existing dwelling is not anticipated to have an impact on farming practices on the property or neighborhood character. Further, the addition will allow the residents of the home to age in place. As such, staff recommend the approval of the proposed variance for coverage within the farm home plate. Additionally, the existing dwelling does not fully conform to the current zoning bylaw yard setback requirements specified for the A1 zone. When an addition is proposed to a non-conforming structure, the non-conformance must first be addressed before the development can proceed and a building permit can be issued. As such, in order to facilitate the proposed addition, a variance has been requested to section 8.1.6AC or A3 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the required exterior side setback from 4 meters to 2.35 meters. While reducing setbacks on residential properties is seldom encouraged as it can disrupt from the form and character of a neighborhood, the variance proposed is not anticipated to negatively impact the streetscape. The house has been encroaching into the exterior side setback since it was built in 1976. The proposed small addition will not further encroach into the required setbacks. When new development occurs on a non-conforming property, it is an opportune time to bring that property into conformance with the zoning bylaw through the approval of a variance. As such, staff are recommending approval of the proposed side setback variance. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. Through to staff, just generally, if there are restrictions on the size of buildings that can be built, like 500 square meters for residents, and if we have setback requirements, I wonder if you could just explain to me the purpose of a lot coverage standard for a farm home plate.
The 500 meters squared requirement is a Agriculture Land Commission requirement. So it's not necessarily our requirement, but it is a limiting factor with regards to any development. It's an ALR. Sometimes you can have a fairly large farm home plate depending on the size of the parcel. So you could have a number of buildings spread out within that farm home plate. If we didn't have a maximum parcel coverage within that farm home plate. But in these situations where it's a smaller property on a larger house within that smaller property, then we do bump up against that farm home plate provision.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I have a couple myself. With the square footage at 351 square meters now, as shows in the report, I'm making the assumption that the addition will still keep it under the 500 square meters. Thank you. And I also note in the report that there's a statement by our Works and Infrastructure that a pit meter needs to be installed. Do you know if the addition will interfere with the installation of that pit meter? No?
Through the chair, no, it will not.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions. Anyone else? Councillor Van Alphen, would you bring forward the recommendation?
I would be glad to, Madam Mayor, that council authorize assurance of development variance permit DVP 21-022 for property located at 12506 Quinn Pool Road, legally described as Lot 37, District Lot 3640, the Soyuz Division Yale District Plan KAP 287A, exempt plans 14140 and 15076, and that the variance to the following sections of the zoning bylaw 2000-450 be granted. Lot coverage within the farm home plate section 8.1.5C to vary the maximum lot coverage within farm home plate from 35% to 43% proposed. Side exterior setback section 8.1.6A4 to vary minimum side exterior setback from 4.5 meters to 2.35 meters proposed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not easy to read all of those numbers. It's almost like a foreign language. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Patton, and further discussion. Call the question. Oh, Councillor Van Alphen.
Not necessarily discussion, Madam Mayor, but I do appreciate the fact that it was circulated through to the ALC, and the ALC saw no issues with this. So thank you for that.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, so that carries unanimously. Thanks, Alex. One more development variance permit tonight, and this is for 10308 Prairie Valley Road, DVP 21-026, and it's Bobby's turn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. Tonight, staff have received a development variance permit application to allow a secondary driveway access to a single property from a single road frontage at 10308 Prairie Valley Road. The applicant has constructed the secondary driveway without any applicable permits and in contradiction of multiple letters from staff denying the request prior to construction. Section 2 of the driveway access bylaw limits the number of driveways permitted to a single property in urban residential areas. Section 2.1 notes that only one driveway only one driveway access per road frontage is permitted per property. Section 2.2 goes on to say that secondary accesses may be permitted on corner lots, but exempt or except on collector or arterial roads such as Prairie Valley Road. The subject property only fronts one roadway and is also located on an arterial road. Therefore, this property does not meet any of the criteria to be considered to have a secondary access. This slide illustrates the location of the newly constructed driveway in question. You will notice that the existing primary driveway exists to the east and that the newly constructed driveway location is constructed within a watercourse development permit area to the west. The subject property is also across the road from the Montessori School as well as Giant Head Elementary. Council should recall the driveway access bylaw that was amended earlier this year to add this section mainly to the benefit of minimizing pedestrian and vehicular interaction on these high traffic roads. During the Prairie Valley Road upgrades in 2012, affected property owners who had more than one driveway access to the road were consulted by staff and were required to identify which access they wished to keep. Each property was permitted to have only one access to the roadway as recommended by an ICBC traffic review. Based on the recommendations of this report, ICBC committed to fund up to $54,000 of that project as a result. And I don't have the value of what was committed in the end, just to put that out there. the owner of this property at the time elected to only retain the east driveway and decommission their secondary access, which did exist to the west in this location where he has constructed a driveway more recently. On April 27th, 2021, staff denied the application for a secondary driveway, noting that the bylaw does not permit secondary accesses from a single road frontage to a single property, especially on arterial or collector roads. On May 19th, the applicant submitted a written letter to the Director of Works and Infrastructure, appealing the decision as permitted by Section 2.3 of the bylaw. On May 31st, the Director of Works and Infrastructure responded to the letter from the applicant upholding staff's original denial and providing 3 options, which included extending the access across the front yard on private property to allow access to the west side yard, eliminating the existing driveway to the east and installing a new one on the west, or to apply for a development variance permit. On July 22nd, staff noted that the applicant paved the driveway. Staff accompanied the bylaw officer to visit the property. The property owner at the time was not home, and staff left a visit notice on the door, along with an application for a watercourse development permit. Bylaw followed up on August 5th with a letter and a fine issued for placing concrete or asphalt on a public highway without permission. The applicant then applied for this variance on August 12th, 2021, following construction of an unapproved secondary driveway. The applicant has also since been working on their watercourse development permit. The photos on the screen were taken the day that the driveway was paved without approval on July 22nd. You will note that in the photo on the right, that the Montessori school is in the background and next door is Giants Head Elementary. Other considerations that should be made if council wishes to grant this variance include that staff would also be required to install a concrete letdown, a driveway letdown from Prairie Valley Road across the boulevard sidewalk to the newly constructed secondary driveway at the applicant's expense. This is an expense that the district already paid to have removed in 2012 as part of the Prairie Valley Road upgrades. In closing, staff recommend denial of DVP 21-026 and that council direct staff to remove the portion of asphalt within the road right-of-way and restore the boulevard to its original condition at the applicant's expense to prohibit access from Prairie Valley Road in this location. Saying that, the applicant is on the line and wishes to speak to the matter, and I will be available for questions following the applicant's presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bobby. Mr. Hart, are you with us? Darren Hart? Darren Hart, did you wish to speak to the development variance permit you've applied for?
Sorry.
Darren Hart, are you with us? Okay, council, your opportunity to ask questions of staff. Councillor Holmes.
I was kind of hoping to ask this to the applicant, but I'll ask it to staff. So I know we're not real estate agents here, but I'm just wondering that when the applicant purchased the property, when they did their title searches and search the history of the property, would they be aware that the driveway was decommissioned and the reasons why it was decommissioned? Yeah, that would certainly, through the chair, sorry, Madam Mayor, that would certainly be something that I would hope to be told if I was buying a property. It would be a good question to ask the owner. I'm not sure.
I could say that there would be no notations on a title search in regards to that sort of issue.
I see Mr. Hart is just joining the session. Mr. Hart, we've had the staff report, and one question has been asked. I'm not sure if you heard any of that. I suspect not, but it is, you do have an opportunity to speak to council.
Okay, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Please go ahead.
I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. Can you hear me? I haven't done this before.
Yeah, yes, we can hear you, Mr. Hart.
Thank you. No, I was not aware that the secondary access was decommissioned. In fact, I was told that there used to be one there. I obviously didn't know that ahead of time. I was told that there was a second access at one point. I was shown photos of that second access being there. And that was a big reason why I bought the property, is because there is a 2-vehicle detached garage on it. They used to have access, and I didn't realize that there would be kind of a process to get that access granted again.
Councillor Holmes, do you have any other questions? Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? I guess the applicant, while we have him with us here. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks for joining us. I'm wondering, what is it that you access with the original access point, the original driveway?
The original driveway has a single attached garage on it. My fiance and I, our work vehicles are what we park in the driveway. The detached garage has 2 hobby cars of mine. I like to work on cars myself in my spare time. So it's not used often. It wouldn't be used often. It's kind of if I need to access tools for work from the garage, or if we're going out camping, we would be using the secondary access. But the primary one is for the attached single car garage and our main work vehicles.
So Mr. Hart, we understand, we've heard from the our staff, the timeline of what occurred over these past few months in 2021, and I guess my question to you is, denying with the denial of the original application and denial of your appeal of the decision, which you had every right to do, and receiving that letter outlining the denial, I wonder why you went ahead and proceeded to pave the secondary driveway. I mean, it seems to me that you're taking a bit of a risk, and now here we are having to deal with it at council. I'm just wondering, what your thought process was on that.
My understanding is that the reason why the original denials happened was purely because of the bylaw. There was no kind of other reason given to me other than the fact that it was a bylaw and there was nothing that they could do to change this bylaw. I was incorrectly under the impression that when they told me I could kind of access across the front lawn because it was private property, I thought that I could then still pave, up until the point where I would need an access because it was private property. So that was my thought process. And then I wasn't sure how long it would take to get all these applications through. The contractor doing the paving didn't tell me that I needed any permits. It's the first time I've ever done something like that. It was obviously a learning process, and I will do whatever I have to do to make it right to whoever I have to make it right to.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions, council? Okay, could I have someone bring forward a resolution, please? Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, a question for staff, if I may. Could you just explain to me again the history of the decommissioning and ICBC's role? I didn't quite get that.
Yeah, through the chair. So in 2012, the district of Summerland took on a capital project to upgrade Prairie Valley Road. As a responsible thing to do, it's my understanding that staff at the time had ICBC review the plans that staff had developed with our consultant, and they developed this report. And as a result of following the recommendations made in the report, ICPC provided a letter stating that they would grant up to a dollar value towards the project if their recommendations were followed, with these increased safety enhancements being one of them. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Barkwell?
So the bottom line is that because we eliminated some driveways, ICBC saw that as a safety improvement and they contributed some money towards the project? Is that what the...
Yeah, through the chair. That wasn't all of the items, and I apologize. I would have included the report with the council package. I only found it just yesterday, actually. However, there were many recommendations made, many that we did follow and many that weren't followed. One of the recommendations were traffic calming around the school, and actually to place a median on Prairie Valley Road in front of Giants Head Elementary, which obviously wasn't done. Yeah, so it was taken to a certain level and left at that, I suppose.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question, and this might be more for our Director of Development Services. With the paving of the secondary driveway, along with the main driveway to the single car garage to the house, if the pavement was cut where they could access from the single driveway in front where the single car garage is, would their lot coverage be exceeded because of the asphalt, or would they be able to leave that asphalt and come across the front? Utilize two driveways from one driveway access.
Through the chair, thanks, Councillor Patton. I don't think so. I think there would be enough a space. There is a fairly large rear yard as well within this property, would go into the total lot coverage area. I think regardless, we would need the watercourse development permit to be issued in that scenario as well, which I do understand the applicant has submitted. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
So, Councillor Patton, I just have a question of the question that you just asked. Was your question about going into the, I guess, east side driveway and then going across, like parallel to the sidewalk to access the newly installed driveway? Is that what you meant?
Yes, Madam Mayor. When I take a look at the photos, there's a space in between the two sections of asphalt, and it's the one that shows the house and the double car garage. And so my thought process was, where they have the two accesses coming off, if they used the one that went to the house, and they went back to and brought the boulevard back to where it should be, they would be able to tie that driveway into the second driveway and still maintain one driveway access, but have two separate driveways on the property.
Okay, I think I understand. I think I do. It's hard to tell from here. I do have a question about one of the other photos, though, was part of the presentation slides. And it's the one that shows looking south towards Prairie Valley. So it's the right-hand side. It looks to me like that there is no driveway access there. Is that's how it looks to me in the photograph? Is that how it actually is? Like, how would Mr. Hart access that driveway?
Yeah, so that's exactly how it appears and how it is in reality. Part of staff's denial was that the access was not granted from Prairie Valley Road. So effectively, what the applicant is doing right now is using the neighboring property's driveway letdown, going diagonal across the sidewalk and accessing the paved driveway that is now there today.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen and then Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if staff could bring up that one photo that Councillor Patton is referring to, because he's confusing me.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Is it this one here?
Is that the one that you were showing me, Councillor Patton?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. When I looked at the pictures on the other one,
Yeah.
I thought that 10308, actually 10312, had the driveway going up in behind it, but I see that it's the next property is 10308.
Okay.
I was right out to lunch around.
Oh, good.
My thought process was good, but
yes, it was.
Yeah, the pictures
Okay.
just didn't work out to what was in my head.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a question there, Councillor Van Elfen? Or do you want me to go on to Councillor Holmes and Councillor Carlson first?
Please and thank you.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, you're next.
Okay, but following on, I guess, from Councillor Patton's thought process, is there any opportunity to formalize the existing relationship with the neighboring driveway where that could become a solution for accessing that garage and through an easement or something, if they were, is that something that happens, if they work out a deal with the neighbor?
Yeah, through the chair, there is certainly always that avenue. The thing about that is both parties need to be in agreement to do that. There is a fence along that property line. There are landscaping features and shrubs and plants and such. So I'm not. I suppose you couldn't rule it out. It is a possibility.
Would something like that have to be registered with land title? Yeah, because it affects both neighboring properties, yeah. Okay, Councillor, are you ready now, Councillor Van Elfen? Okay, and then we'll go to you, Councillor Carlson.
Just a different train of thought. That garage in the back of the property, how would our fire department get access to that? I don't understand how it got built back there without, there's no access to it whatsoever. So if there was a structure fire, would they have a difficult time getting there? Like, I don't know if I'm going down the wrong avenue here, but it just seems kind of out of the place.
Through the chair, if I could respond to that. By no means am I a firefighter. I do I am aware of hydrant spacing requirements, and I do work quite closely with the fire department. And those spacings do allow for fire coverage on all portions of properties, not just, to the front door or something of that nature, right? I don't have the locations of hydrants in this area available to me right now. However, that is the intent of hydrant spacing.
You're good, Councillor Carlson, or?
Yeah, Councillor Holmes asked the question or brought forward the idea that I was asking. I do have a little bit of a follow-up on that, though. The sidewalk is really the critical piece of what's important here, I think. And so I guess, currently, if there's a fence and some shrubs, and there must be more crossing of a sidewalk than is necessarily allowed, because you would have to come to the edge of the property and then sort of zigzag onto this other, onto the access to the road in its current configuration. So I guess my concern would be that doing that long-term is not going to work. And so unless there's an actual diagonal path or a crossing over of that property line before it gets to the sidewalk, I don't see that being successful.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Patton had mentioned it, but it was on the wrong property. But if we're talking about this property with that green arrow, is there a possibility, and I'm going to stand up for a moment because I got a point of this because I'm as confused. Came off the main access across and over. Would that be legit? Where they don't have access to bounce over this non-existent letdown?
If I can, I'll just jump into this one through the chair to get Councillor Van Elfen. Yeah, I think that was one of the options from our Director of Works and Infrastructure proposed in his letter of correspondence for a denial, was to cut across the front yard. So there has been a number of options that have been provided to this owner, and I think that if we do go, if I can advise council, if we go forward with the staff recommendation tonight, there will be opportunities to look at different types of options with the owner moving forward, whether it's an access easement on the neighborhood property or going around the house somehow to get to that access. But we would need resolution from council tonight on that to deny that request.
If I can follow up. So really, there's no width requirement from us as a district on a driveway, is there? No. Like, we're not requiring it. So he could theoretically come off that existing driveway with a driveway that's wide enough to accommodate, him getting his hobby cars out of the back garage, and he could still landscape on both sides of that driveway, possibly. Yeah, I just was trying to get it clear in my head, but I'm seeing some nods, so thank you.
I have a question about the resolution, the second part of it. To remove the portion of pavement within the road right of way. Which portion of the pavement is within the road right of way? Because it comes down to the sidewalk. So can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. The portion of pavement within the road right of way is only approximately 3 to 4 feet long from the back of the sidewalk. So it wouldn't be very much to be removed. However, the District of Summerland is in no position to be doing work on someone's private property, and I don't think we're in a position to ask them to remove what they've done on their property as well. So I hope that answers your question.
It does answer my question. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions for staff? I'll ask someone to bring forward a resolution then, please. Councillor Holmes.
I'll move the staff recommendation that development variance permit DVP 21-026 at 10308 Prairie Valley Road, legally described as Lot 10 DL 474 ODYD Plan 16910, accept Plan KAP 69549 to vary the number of permitted driveway accesses to a single property described in section 2.1 of the driveway access bylaw number 92-047 be denied, and that staff be directed to remove the portion of pavement within the road right-of-way and restore the original condition of the right-of-way in front of the newly paved area at the property owner's expense to prohibit access from Prairie Valley Road.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Seconder? Councillor Barkwell? Okay, any further discussion on this? Councillor Barkwell.
When we had a discussion about driveways in the afternoon meeting, you know, I was thinking to myself how I don't really have a problem with two driveways on a property. You can only be going out one driveway, or usually there's only going to be one car entering or exiting a driveway at a time. So I don't see how it's any huge safety difference. But once the road is constructed and the green space is put there along the edge and it exists, and you bought the property this way, and we have all those resolutions, I'm really concerned about the precedents it would set for other people coming along and everybody else that wants another driveway. And they say, well, you gave it to that guy, why can't I get mine? When the house is, when it's a new construction, I'd be certainly willing to consider it, but for the existing places, I don't see it as, when it causes disruption like this, no, I can't support it.
Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Carlson.
Yes, thank you. I like to recognize there are other options for the applicant. I know they're not ideal, but they do exist. If I were him, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed with my real estate agent and the lawyer for not researching the reason why that driveway was decommissioned, and rather than just assuming that one used to be there, so one can be there again. I'm really apprehensive of going back on something that ICBC recommended and provided funding for on the basis of school safety. I know ICBC school safety is a strong priority, and they don't seem to give out as much money as they used to, but I know they used to give out money. We've been asking additional funding from them for some time now for to improve the safety around the middle school, and I guess this was under the same program. So I'm really reluctant to go against something that was done based on that recommendation and funding from ICBC.
Anyone else? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I read the history where May 19th and May 31st, actually May 31st, there was a denial letter April 27th, and then another letter back to the owners on May 31st. And then when the pictures are shown where the driveway has been paved July 22nd, that kind of, I have an issue with that. But I do see that there is a silver lining there talking with the neighbor and doing a reciprocal access agreement on that, on the neighbor's driveway. And perhaps it won't, you know, depending on our development services, but perhaps it can be a zero-scape where it's road crush or something in between. I'm not, you know, that's their job, not mine. But I think there was other options available that, as were indicated, weren't probably as aesthetically pleasing, but at the same time, the garage was there, and I do feel, as Councillor Holmes, that there is options available where, and the nice part is that the lot coverage isn't exceeded, so the new driveway to the double garage doesn't have to come out. So that's a huge bonus. So anyways, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patton. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So let's see. Now on to 9.4, zoning amendment bylaw number 2021-033, Lowertown Marina, Z21-009. Joanne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So council directed staff to prepare a zoning amendment bylaw to rezone the water from WZ3 to WZ1, where the current zoning would permit a marina for the Oasis waterfront development. So staff has prepared a zoning amendment bylaw for the unsurveyed portion of Okanagan Lake between Rotary Beach and the existing marina to change the zoning designation from intensive water use to recreational water use. And this draft zoning amendment bylaw would rezone that portion of water from WZ3 to WZ1, and a public hearing would be held to hear matters about the bylaw. Just to note that the public hearing that would be held wouldn't necessarily be to weigh in on the specifics of a marina proposal, as this amendment bylaw contemplates the merits of having no marina or public or commercial docking facilities in this location. So it's not directly related to a particular marina proposal at this time, even though Oasis has indicated their intentions to apply for a marina at this location to the province. This particular zoning amendment bylaw doesn't consider the merits of any particular proposal. It is considering the merits of removing that as a permitted use under the bylaw. So the content of the draft amendment bylaws to change it on the zoning from WZ3 to the WZ1. So this would remove certain uses that are allowed in the WZ3 zone. So those uses are highlighted in bold as to the differences between those two zones. So the WZ3 zone allows for marinas, it allows for boat launches, fish hatcheries, marina equipment rentals, and water feature installations. It also allows for accessory uses for a marina, including fuel facilities and also marine sandy dump facilities. It also allows for the same uses in the WZ1 zone, which is limited to boating, foreshore public access, recreational water activities, uses permitted by provincial crown lands and public utilities. In the WZ1 zone, as an accessory use, docks are permitted, as well as boat lifts if they're part of a dock and temporary moorage. But in the WZ1 zone, it's more of a limited nature in terms of what's allowed for a dock as an accessory use versus a dock as a principal use. So just quickly to review where we find WZ3 zones in Summerland. So those are shown on blue on the map here. So there's areas in Trout Creek, Lowertown, and Crescent Beach areas that allow for more intensive water uses. Most of these areas are abutting district-owned parks, but there are a few select privately owned lands as well. So parks abutting the WZ3 zones include Crescent Beach, Beach Orchard, Dog Beach, the Rotary Beach, and so on throughout. And there's also the WZ3 zone abuts Anoka Provincial Park and the abutting area around Highway 97 there. It also includes the South Okanagan Sailing Association site. And then within the subject area of Lowertown, there are several non-district owned parcels that are abutting the WZ3 zone, including the Lakeshore Racket Center, the Oasis Development, the Trout Hatchery, the Summerland Yacht Club, and Summerland Waterfront Resort. So just highlighted here in gray are those privately owned parcels that are abutting the WZ3 zones in relation to the subject area that we're looking at here. So when reviewing and preparing the amendment bylaw for council, I undertook a review of the official commute plan to assess whether the proposed amendment aligned with the policy directives contained within the plan. So I'm just going to review some of the key policy found regarding marinas, docks, and water access in the OCP as it pertains to Lowertown. So specifically for Lowertown, there is policy stating that the district's desire to facilitate additional public boat docking facilities and to increase public boat access opportunities along the waterfront. The WZ3 zone is the only water use zone that allows for such facilities. No public access docks, wharfs, or marinas are allowed in the WZ1 or 2 zones. The Lowertown policies also encourage new developments to provide docking and mooring opportunities for public boats. And again, the WZ3 zone is the only water use zone that would allow for this use to occur. In addition to that, the Lowertown has its own design guidelines for development permits. And under these design guidelines, it encourages development of additional public and private facilities that address the needs of both residents and visitors, and states that development should include additional public docking and mooring facilities. So the proposed rezoning to the WZ1 would only allow for limited private dock to be constructed serving the upland residents. And this is seen to be at odds with the design guidelines that seek to encourage additional public docking facilities, as well as the design guidelines that encourage the development of additional public and private facilities. There is also a natural environment OCP policy to support foreshore leases if the natural function and public access of the foreshore is maintained. And because the Lowertown development permit area does extend into part of the lake, a development permit would be required for any structure placed in this area, and environmental factors can be reviewed at that time. And just to note that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan seeks to uphold the Lowertown guidelines on public access to the shoreline and increase public access to the waterfront in general. And it seeks to increase commercial and public opportunities for recreation along the shoreline, but it doesn't have any specific policies or plans for marinas or docks, so it's silent on the matter there. There is mention of a long-distance designated swim lane from Peach Orchard Park to Rotary Beach. And the Parks Department has advised that a waterfront concept plan is being developed this fall, but is still in the preliminary stages. So the location of where that swim lane might end is yet to be determined. And this project would include extra buoys to help define the swim beach as part of that process. So boats near Rotary Beach activities, including non-motorized activities that go on there, like paddle boarding and kayaking, do need to be considered with the specific marina project to ensure a safe environment between those user groups. I will also note, just going back for a little bit of history, the district did have a stewardship agreement with the province for the Rocky Mountain Ridged Mussel. And this agreement identified the shoreline around the subject property as being an area where there is Rocky Mountain Ridge mussel. And this mussel is listed as one of special concern under the Species at Risk Act. So species of special concern do not have the same prohibitions that apply to species that are listed as endangered or threatened. But this stewardship agreement is one that aims to have a strategic protection and cooperation between the provincial government and the District of Summerland in their operations. So it's meant to implement best practices for protecting the mussel within the district's operations, but it doesn't apply to other operators or landowners. It's the areas that are identified as part of this agreement are where the district has parks and trails. So the subject area would be identified because of the waterfront trail that's in front of the property. So I'm just mentioning this agreement because there is an overlap between those areas of where the mussels have been identified and where the WZ3 areas occur, most likely because of the overlap between the district's parks being the areas where you have the WZ3 zoning. But if a structure was proposed in this area, for further environmental study would be required to identify if any mitigation measures would be needed. This would likely be addressed by the province during that application process. But since this area is also in a development permit area, for environmental reasons, the district can ask for further environmental study and mitigation as part of that process. So just to summarize, the OCP policies are supportive of providing additional boat docking facilities in Lowertown, and the Lowertown design guides also encourage private and public moorage within new developments. The Lowertown development permit area would allow opportunity to review design, including marina parking or impacts to the park's recreational activities or the Rocky Mountain Ridge mussel if needed. And the zoning amendment bylaw as proposed would remove public boat docking uses, and this is seen as a departure from what is currently supported in the OCP. It is the opposite of what is encouraged in the Lowertown design guidelines as well. And I will also mention that going to a WZ1 zone would not necessarily prevent a private dock from being allowed in this area. And for this reason, I've provided some more options for clarification as to what's allowed in each of the water use zones. So under the water use zones, we have WZ3, 2, and 1. So the current zoning of WZ3 allows for pretty much all of those uses, marinas, larger docks, and so on. The WZ2 zone allows for no structures. It only allows for boating and recreational water activities, uses that are prohibited by provincial crown lands and public utilities. So there's no additional dock structures or moorage of any kind in that zone. And the WZ1 zone allows for docks and boat lifts and temporary moorage, but they're subject to our dock regulations under the zoning bylaw for an accessory use. So they're quite a bit more restrictive than the WZ3. So just to kind of summarize options in terms of council's direction, that would be option 1 for the WZ1 zone, which would trigger a public hearing. It's not seen to align with the OCP. It would not allow for a marina or public use docks. It would allow for a private dock that would be much more restricted in nature. And I'm just going to go through each of those options a little bit more. So again, option 1 is the bylaw that you have in front of you as part of your package. So this would not allow for commercial or public dock or marina. It would allow for some private or shared docks to be permitted under the accessory use regulations. Under the accessory use dock regulations, it's maximum 1 dock per upland lot. There's a side setback of 5 meters. So that's just depicted there from 5 meters from the projection of the Oasis property line on the north. And then there's a maximum extension into the lake of 40 meters from the natural boundary. So again, a rough approximation of what 40 meters would look like in that area is drawn on that map for context. And there's other maximum width restrictions and so on in the bylaw, but in terms of the main limiting factors there, it's the maximum extension into the lake being limited to 40 meters, which obviously would push any development to not project any further than that. Option 2 is kind of a hybrid option, proposing potentially to put WZ2 on the portion of water that's closest to the park and leave a portion as WZ3. Again, this isn't council's direction. It would trigger a public hearing as well. And it's seen as not aligning with the OCP for the portion that's in the WZ2 zone, because you're again removing those uses that are being encouraged under the OCP. But it is an option for council to consider, given the comments about the interface between the park and a potential marina. So another option would be for council to provide further direction on a site-specific regulation within the WZ3 zone to maintain public and private docking facilities, for providing guidance as to more regulation on specific design. So this could be something like a setback from the beach or public swim areas, or a limit on the number of boat slips. And this would allow for an opportunity to try to align with the OCP, but provide some restrictions on the scale or location of such docking facilities as directed by council. So this option would also have the benefit of going to a public hearing to see if the public was supportive of such a restriction. And the final option is option 4. So this is an option to keep the zoning the same and have this area remain as WZ3. So this would maintain the permitted uses, including public, commercial, and private use docks and marinas at this location. So this recommendation is the one being put forward by staff because it's seen to be the only existing zone that aligns with the existing OCP policies for Lowertown. So all bylaws are enacted by that are enacted must be consistent with the official community plan. So staff is not in a position to support a bylaw moving forward that is seen to be not consistent with the OCP policies. So for this reason, it's staff's recommendation to keep the existing zoning of the WZ3 because of its consistency with the OCP policies. And staff also contends that the zoning amendments to either a WZ1 or WZ2 zone are not consistent with the OCP policies and should be accompanied by an OCP amendment should they move forward. So to conclude, it is staff's recommendation that zoning amendment bylaw number 0201-033 not proceed, and that the subject area remain in the WZ3 zone to continue to allow for a broad range of uses that support lake access. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Just a reminder to council that we are not talking about the Oasis Marina at this point. We're talking about the potential to have a zoning amendment from WZ3 to WZ1. Okay, having said that, questions of staff, council? Councillor Carlson.
I guess my first question is it possible to expand an existing and established marina? Or do they always have to be built brand new? Do you know?
Through the chair, I'll answer on behalf of John. Thanks for the question. I think any increase to a marina use that's currently building would require a subsequent approval from the Crown. There wouldn't be any change from our perspective. It was already zoned WZ3, unless it was also included in the development permit area that Joanne has correctly identified for council tonight, that like this subject area is within a development permit area, that if there was an expansion of the marina, let's say if there was one in place, it would trigger that DP to be required by us.
Questions? Councillor Pat?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if this verges. When we talked about the Gartrell Trail and those properties that we're looking to do the docks there, and if I'm mistaken, and I've been mistaken a lot tonight, so please correct me. I thought that for the WZ1 that the property would have to have direct access to the dock based on the government's rules, right? So when you take a look at this configuration, if we were to look at going to a WZ1, would a private dock actually be allowed as the property doesn't come right up to the foreshore?
Yeah, if I can answer that one again, through the chair to Councillor Patton. I think that's a great question. Thanks for providing it to us. Yeah, normally whether it's dock or marina, you require the upland owner approval according to the Crown requirements for consideration. And that is something that the Crown still hasn't had the chance to weigh in yet with regards to the potential proposal for marina in this location. So that could be a potential issue for any dock structure or marina structure happening within this location due to the existing marina with and their current tenure kind of encroaching in the majority of those upland areas already of this development area.
Thank you. So it doesn't matter whether it be WZ3 or WZ1, because there is no direct access to the foreshore from the property. It may be a moot point because the province, in their wisdom, may not move forward with granting approvals anyways.
Yeah, through the chair, that could be the case. Again, I think the application was recently submitted for a marina use in this location. Staff have become recently aware, but there's still a lengthy process for the Crown to review that application and provide comment, but you're correct.
Thank you so much.
Okay, other questions? Councillor Barkwell.
Councillor Patton raises a good point. I hadn't realized that there wasn't ownership of the foreshore there, which is exactly the same issue we had down in Landry Crescent. And I wonder, is there even an option, or is it a policy? Is it legislation or is it policy for the Crown to not permit a dock if they don't own the foreshore?
Through the chair again to Councillor Barkwell. So if maybe it would be best to show the map again, or the presentation, Roland, if you can, of this area. But there is partial frontage for this area. So the big question mark is, can the Crown consider further encroachment to the upland owner to the north, which is the Lakeshore Rackets Club property, there is upland ownership, but it would be primarily the Rackets Club that is the owner. So there would be a owner permission required from the Rackets Club, theoretically.
Except that it sits on provincial land. It's a lease, right? It's Crown land, the Lakeshore Rackets Club?
I don't think so.
I thought they had a 30-year lease.
Oh, I don't know for sure.
With the province.
I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's not owned by the Lakeshore Rackets Club. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two different things. The issue in Landry Crescent was where you said, let's say the foot of the dock was where it's anchored, had to be on the upland Crown or upland owner's property, and the district owned the land in between. And there is no district-owned land in between. You're just talking really about setback rules, and that there's no setback rules that we have for WZ3, and no setback rules that have ever been discussed with the province. Do they have any rules regarding, like what you say, that you're sort of maybe going at an angle over in front of the neighbor's property?
Through the chair to Councillor Barkwell, yeah, it is a requirement to have definitely anchorage to your upland property for the marina, but as well, they would look at the angle it would go into the water and ensure you're not encroaching into other upland areas. You need to maintain access to the water of the neighbor upland owners, if that makes sense. So that, again, going back to Councillor Patton's main question, it's to be determined whether the Crown would be allowing this type of rules or not.
But we're not quite at that point yet. Okay, other questions? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as this goes through the provincial process, is there a referral that comes back to the district, or because this is Crown lands, like, is it a courtesy to speak with us, or do we have some teeth when the referral, like, is there a courtesy referral where they're just like, yeah, let's ask them, but it really doesn't matter what they have to say because we're going to move forward anyways? Or is it like, oh, you know what, it is a true referral, where what happens has some teeth in the outcome, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I have no idea what the Crown does with our referral comments. They, through the chair, sorry to Councillor Patton, in my short experience in the Okanagan Valley, I've been working here 4 years, they've always taken interest in what the local government has to say through the referral process. So yes, to answer your first question, they do send a referral to us, but that doesn't always necessarily bind them. I've seen them in a previous consideration on Suis Lake make a decision to allow for a certain type of structure in the water that was vehemently opposed by the local government at the time. Now, that was a different situation because there was no zoning in place at the time. So it was just the referral comments of the local government that were provided to the Crown, and the ministry made their own public consultation process and went forward with it based on their own regulations.
Okay. Graham?
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to point out in the external referral comments in the package for council, Flynn Rowe out of Kamloops does make some strong comments about the challenges with this area for potential other marina tenures, and do reference the referral that would be sent through, particularly that siting would be difficult given other marina tenures, existing structures, the riparian rights of adjoining properties. But they also have indicated if an application came in, they would review it with referral to others.
Councillor Barkwell.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. If there's no more questions, I'd like to put a motion on the table for discussion because I have comments to make, but I think it's appropriate to wait for those comments until there's a motion on the table.
I would agree. Are there any other questions? Okay, please go ahead, Councillor Barkwell.
Okay. I just changed my screen here. I'd like to move forward that Schedule B of District Summerland Zoning Bylaw number 2000-450 as amended is hereby further amended by rezoning an unsurveyed portion of Lake Okanagan as shown outlined in heavy black on Schedule A attached to informing part of this bylaw from the intensive water use WZ3 zone to the recreational water use zone 1 WZ1 zone. Sorry? Oh, I think that was the fourth option, wasn't it? I don't know which one. It basically is to, from my original notice of motion, to go to the WZ1 zone, which wouldn't permit a marina, would only permit a private dock for the use of the residences at the Oasis project for their use and visitors and such like that. Yeah. To go back. But the bigger question is, and I'm speaking to the motion away, is to get the public input.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Holmes? Go ahead.
So I'm not really sure I agree that the OCP supports a marina. The word marina does not appear once in the official community plan. It talks about public docks, but really you have to consider where and when those docks are. So it was never really talked about. And so, you know, if there is a dock there, a public dock, there's 3 public docks at the Rotary Beach right next door for people's use. If there's a dock at the Oasis, presumably they would allow walkers along the trail to go out on that dock, but it wouldn't be terribly necessary. And I was really surprised to see that we have all sorts of rules concerning docks in our regulations for any other location other than this one, which would say you have to be 5 meters back from your neighbor's property line. You can't cross a hypothetical line that extends the property line out into the water. And there's absolutely no rules whatsoever for a marina, none regarding the construction, all the things, an extensive list of things that are not allowed for the other zones. Things you wouldn't think of. You can't put out a gazebo out there. There's just no rules and limits to what can be done in a WZ3 zone. I think this is a real oversight when we pass the zoning. And if the community plan suggests that we have a public docks at all, it doesn't address where and what shape and form and size and structure those are. So I think we need to hear from the public about whether they think any sort of a marina in this location, which by necessity would be largely in front of the Rackets Club, the neighbors club, violating all the rules for every other property owner, is acceptable. And beyond that, whether we want a marina or not, what do we want our foreshore to look like? Do we want a marina really busy with boats and everything, or do we draw the line now? That's what I want to hear from the public. It's really more of do we want a marina or not? And if so, where? That's what's never discussed.
Councillor Holmes.
I would have been okay with presenting option 2 to the public to hear back on that. I think if the Oasis can work out some sort of agreement with the yacht club to build a bridge or whatever to the breakwater and develop what's already there, then that might not necessarily be a bad thing. I think what we really need to hear from the public about is what they would like to see in front of the Racket Center. And as we heard this morning from during the permissive tax exemption presentations, that foreshore is used a lot by the public. It's used by the schools for launching their paddle boards and kayaks and things. It's been used for a long time, and I think it's seen as public parkland. And I think a lot of people don't even they think it's the municipality's land. They think it's part of the park, an extension of the park. They don't even realize it's not. So I think that's what. And at the APC when they discussed it last week, Councillor Barkwell and I sat in on that. That was their concern too, was the encroachment of across the property line into an I know it's the water zone, not the property land zone, but it's encroaching across the property line, and how then you could keep going encroaching across the property line over into Rotary Beach, and so how you can't keep going forever encroaching across property lines. So I think I support Councillor Barkwell's motion, but I really think that option 2 is the one that really narrows it down and what we want to hear for. If you think of that land in front of the Racket Center as parkland, then it's not really inconsistent with the OCP, and it's certainly compatible with the Rec Master Plan. When we talk about the waterfront waterfront concept plan, I think before we do that, it's totally premature to even contemplate having a marina in that location until we've completed that waterfront concept plan. And maybe through that, we may wish to partner with the Rackets Club on recreational uses, the same way that we're planning to partner with them to build a public tennis court. So I think there's options. There's things in the works already, and like Councillor Barkwell, I think we need to hear from the public.
Okay, anyone else? I'll come back to you in a second. Is there anyone else on council that has, Councillor Carlson, then I'll go back to you, Councillor Barkwell.
I'd just like to comment that I agree with Councillor Holmes. And when you look at, when you look and think about that area, it makes a lot of sense to me that if they'd like to build a dock, it should be in front of right in front of the actual development, instead of in front of what many consider to be a piece of public parkland. Because this will, even though it's potentially a public marina, or there will be moorage for others, the yacht club is public too, but I can't access it. I can't go in, and it's only public and so much that I can pay for my membership to participate, and this would be the exact same thing.
Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, thank you. I thought option 2 was a good option as well. But I really wasn't sure about all the implications of it. And I wasn't really sure, does it extend, is that the correct property line that it follows? Is that how is that straight off our GIS mapping?
Maybe if you can put the presentation back just so the public can see what we're looking at for option 2. Thanks, Roland. Sorry. And through the chair, to answer that question, Councillor Barkwell. So yeah, the way that we've developed this option for council's consideration is an extension of the north property line running along the same plane of that current north property line of the current Oasis development, running into the water in the same angle. So that roughly lines up to an equal distance from the existing tenure for the yacht club. So there's a skinny sliver of land that would remain WZ3, and would protect basically the frontage in front of the Racket Club area.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to Councillor Van Elfen.
So I guess one of my hesitation with option 2 there was, how does it deal with the issue of addressing with the public whether we want a marina at all?
Yeah, that's a good question, Councillor Barkwell. I think that you would be limiting the potential for a large marina as what was currently being considered by the proponents with the area that's being left as WZ3 in fronting the area. They would still require a requirement for a public hearing. So I would assume the public would be able to comment on the zone change as well as potentially the potential project as well as the proponents of the project at that time. But specifically looking at protecting the racket club area, more opposed than to an actual design of a potential marina. Now, saying that for council's information, again, any potential marina project would still require a development permit, have to go through that process, and there'd be a public review process as well as council approval for that marina whenever it came forward for consideration.
Councillor Van Alphen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through our planner. On an option 4, does the government consult with the public? Do they have their own public hearings?
Through the chair to Councillor Van Halfen, yes, they do. They are required to complete their own public consultation process. Usually they get the proponent to do that on their behalf. But they wouldn't normally have the same type of format as we would as a formal public hearing setting. It might be a different type of public meeting that they would host.
So basically we're duplicating what they may do anyways? Possibly.
Yeah, it'd be 2 levels of approval, I guess. Required.
Thank you.
Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Carlson.
Yeah, just on that, again, that was discussed at the APC meeting, and it was said at the meeting that, you know, we probably shouldn't let the province be deciding what's best for the community. The community ought to be deciding what's best for the community.
Carlson?
I have a question. I don't know if anyone will know the answer, but if the province makes a decision to give a lease or a license or a permission to do something, is there an opportunity for anybody who feels affected by that to appeal that decision when it comes to building a dock or marina? Do you know? I know that in certain jurisdictions there would be, but is, you know, this type of license, is that something that council or the general public could appeal if they didn't feel like their input was heard or that should have been issued?
Through the chair to Councillor Carlson, yeah, I'm actually not aware of the appeal process myself for a license of occupation of the water. Wondering if Joanne knows anything about it at all.
I'm unaware of the appeals process. The aspect that I asked the province specifically about at this stage was the public input that goes through. So in terms of when they receive the application, what opportunities they provide to the public before they make their decision. So I would have to follow up as to what the public would have the rights to as an appeal after they made a decision but weren't happy with the result.
Just to follow up, I think that from past experience, knowing that docks get granted permission quite often along the lakeshore in Summerland, and often the neighbors have absolutely no idea that an application has even been made. And so I think it's important that we are paying attention to the fact that these applications are made, and if the people in our community want to provide their input, but they haven't been asked by the province, or they don't know where to find out from the province that this even exists, I think that there may be an opportunity for the district to figure out where is that and where can people provide that input, because if an application has been made, then surely there's soon to be an opportunity for some sort of comment. But I think that we need to make sure that we're on that and we know exactly what that opportunity is and where it is, regardless of the zoning of the water.
Councillor Barkwell?
I was just going to say the regulatory body decisions are always subject to judicial review, which is usually just on questions of process. And they're given wide deference as to correctness.
So Councillor Barkwell, your motion was for option 1, and we've heard a little bit about option 2. I have a question about option 3. And because there's so many to be determined in option 3, I'm wondering if you could walk us through what that process would look like for the site-specific WZ3.
Yes, so this is one that I put forward as an option just because the WZ3 does allow for all of those uses. But to Councillor Barkwell's point, there aren't any regulations as to how those uses are addressed on a particular property, say like, how far it extends into the lake, for example, or a setback from a property or extension of a property line, or distances from other marinas or docks or from other public facilities. So this would be kind of an open-ended option for council to determine what specific element they felt was something that they wanted to protect, and then putting in a site-specific provision in that area into the bylaw so that it allowed for, one, a public hearing to occur, and two, to float the idea of a specific regulation as to how a marina or a dock might be developed in that area. So that could be something along the lines of a setback, as I mentioned, or it could be maybe limiting the number of boat spaces, or how far that extends into the lake, or how far that is close to a public beach, for example. So this was an option, not knowing what council might come up with. This would be an opportunity to modify the existing zoning to include something that was more targeted in terms of what they're trying to achieve, and then putting that into a zoning amendment bylaw.
Okay, thanks for answering that. It seems to me that this is an option that, while it doesn't follow the change from WZ3 to WZ1, it does provide input from council. It provides input from the public through the public hearing process, and it provides an opportunity for district staff to work with the proponent and come up with something that either the public thinks, yeah, this meets what we'd like to see there, it fits the OCP, et cetera, or it doesn't. And then the final decision is, well, council decides based on the work that was done, what's presented at the public hearing, what feedback we get from the public and the proponent at the public hearing, and then we make our difficult decision. To me, that is the most, of the options that are here, without going right to, well, no, even including just staying as it is, this is the one that gives most opportunities for input from council, from staff, from the proponent, and from the public. So this is the option that I'd like to see. Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, difficult discussion. Just sitting here quietly trying to absorb a lot of this, and I tend to agree with you. I think this is an opportunity, still gives us the opportunity for a public hearing to hear from the public, and I think that's important. Also, I think this may, again, we're not supposed to be, I think, discussing the developer, but it's hard not to. But I think there's an opportunity here for the developer to possibly look at partnerships. A partnership to the development to the south, the marina, and possibly some consultation and conversation with the Rackets Club. Maybe it's a project that could enhance our local marina. And there's a lot of questions, and that's where the public hearing, I think, would come in good. Councillor Carlson said something, yeah, sure, we have a marina, but there's no public access. Well, actually, I can go in to fuel up, and I can go in and use the restaurant facilities. But if I want to launch my boat there, I have to pay, or if I want moorage, I have to wait. So, I think I think the option 3 is a really good option. Like I say, we get a chance to hear the public, and I think it's going to encourage the developer to have some serious conversations with their neighbors. And I don't know, like I say, the Racket Club, it may be a possible enhancement for the neighbors to the north and south, and for the entire community. But I don't know that. I'd like to hear from the public, but I don't want to limit our options. So I'd like to go with option 3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barkwell.
I don't disagree. That's not a bad option too. I guess my only question is, let's say staff put together a proposal for rezoning to a site-specific WZ3 zone with some specific development ideas, and we take it to a public hearing and we hear from the public and it's not received very well. So we defeat that rezoning. What happens next?
Yeah, thanks, Councilor Barkwell, through the chair. So in that situation, if the rezoning was defeated because of the certain criteria that had been presented as part of the draft bylaw that went to public hearing, whatever was approved at first and second by council, then the rezoning would fail, and then it would revert back to the current zoning, which would be WZ3 at that time.
Okay. Does anybody have any more discussion on the yay or nay, their feelings about the option number 1? Just a sec. Councillor Carlson, did you have your hand up?
I have a question. What would the province do if they got 2 applications for the same piece of water? Do we know? Is there a process there? Because we own a piece of property that has the exact same access to that piece of property.
Through the chair, I think that is an interesting question in terms of that type of scenario. Again, they'd probably look closely at both applications and look at their own regulations on requiring access to the water from the upland owner, and probably within that principle find a way to solve both solutions. It's that overarching principle of maintaining access from the upland owner is paramount to them.
Okay, Councillor Barkwell, and then I'm going to call the question.
Just a question on process, Madam Mayor. If it's sort of shaping up that maybe option 3, is looking popular. If we defeat this motion, there's the opportunity for someone else to put another motion on the floor immediately, because we don't usually do that, but this is a different situation. So I see a lot of heads nodding. So 2 or the other options, and either of the other options can come up. Okay, thanks.
We've probably done that more times than we care to remember, actually. Okay, I'll call the question. Could you reread that for me? Kendra, it's been a bit of time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I would actually ask that Councillor Barkwell reread that.
Actually, that's a good idea. And then he can pass the wording on to you.
Yes, please.
I just took it from the from the agenda package that Schedule B of District of Summerland zoning bylaw number 2000-450 as amended is hereby further amended by rezoning an unsurveyed portion of Lake Okanagan as shown outlined in heavy black on Schedule A, attached to and forming part of this bylaw from the intensive water use WZ3 zone to the recreational water use zone 1, WZ1 zone. That's verbatim from the draft.
Do you see that? It's an attachment to our agenda package. Let's see, it's called zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 2021-033. Yeah. Okay, and Councillor Holmes seconded that. All in favor? Opposed? So you two are in favor. Is everyone else opposed? I couldn't really see hands. Okay, so that is defeated. And would someone like to bring another? Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to put a motion forward that we put the option 3 site-specific WZ3 motion on the floor, Madam Mayor.
And a seconder for that? I'll second. Okay, and it's on the floor for discussion.
Just wonder if you might read back what that actually is, just so we have the right words, please.
Where is that?
Madam Mayor, I believe that would be option 3 of the discussion paper or request for decision. And that would read that the council directs staff to prepare draft rezoning amendment to rezone the subject water area from WC3 to a site-specific WZ3 zone with limiting criteria as specified by council.
Brad?
Sorry, just if I can get a further clarification on the proposed resolution. We did ask this motion that council specify which criteria within the resolution, but I think from what I hear in the discussion is we'd like staff to work with the proponent on the criteria, so maybe that would be a friendly amendment to this proposal.
As said.
Just a sec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I believe we would say that, council directs staff to prepare a draft zoning amendment to rezone the subject water area from WC3 to a site-specific WZ3 zone with limiting criteria as, you would say like as developed or in consultation with the criteria developed in consultation with the proponent.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Brad, does that fulfill your intention?
Yeah, I think that'd be sufficient.
Okay, and you're okay with that? Okay, I'm okay with that too. Okay, now that we have it on the floor. Yes, I know, but I saw Councillor Van Elfen's hand go up first, and I think Councillor Holmes, you had your hand up or no? Okay, so Councillor Van Elfen and then Councillor Barkwell and then Councillor Patton and then Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I brought that one forward and it still gives us the opportunity to have public input. It gives staff the opportunity to work with the proponent, and ultimately the decision will be ours at the end of it all. So, but I appreciate Councillor Barkwell bringing this forward. I do like, the option to be able to hear from the public. But I also want the option that we can work with the proponent and see, maybe we can make this something that's really good for the community. I don't know. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. I believe that I brought up option 3, but we won't talk about that anymore. Councillor
certainly did.
Barkwell.
Oh, thank you. I thought we were, if we're discussing the direction for staff on what sort of specific criteria that should be included, and I think I heard the Director of Development Services sort of allude to that. And if we're still in the process of doing that, or I don't know how we define this, but I'd like to propose that any proposals presented respect the lot line setbacks. That whatever, I don't know.
Okay, I see our Director of Development Services writing that down. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's kind of a segue on Councillor Barkwell. I do feel too that the specific water zone 23 is a great option. I do have a concern is that as our Director of Development Services alluded to, if I think that it has to come to us prior to, only for the fact, for review, only for the fact is if it goes through the public hearing process and we don't like it, then it's going to revert back to WZ3, if I'm not mistaken. So everything that we're talking about, everything that we are contemplating is gone. It's just going to go back to WZ3, where it's...
Right, but Councillor Patton, following due process, it will come back to us. It has to pass first and second reading before it even goes to the public hearing. So we'll have plenty of time. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I hear your concern, but I think that that's covered just by the legislative process.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Carlson.
So if the proponent has already submitted the application to the province and we're talking about working with the proponent, I'm not sure what we're working with them for if that application is already submitted. And as we determine these to be determined, meanwhile, the province is processing this application, and I don't quite get where we're trying to achieve with this.
Well, if I could speak to that, the whole intention of bringing this forward tonight was to give an opportunity for the public to have their say. And this option provides the public the opportunity to have their say. Irregardless of whether or not the proponent has already put the application forward to the province, option 1, all the options except for the last one, option 4, had the opportunity to have a public hearing. So we're not in any different situation than we would be with with WZ1 or WZ2 or WZ3 site specific. Because it all has to come forward for public hearing. And I think that's what the number one concern was, is to let people have a say through the public hearing process.
I guess what I'm questioning is what is it people are going to have a say on? To me, it's too abstract because I don't know what's to be determined, we're deciding something that we don't know what it is that we're asking people to comment on. What's being proposed, I guess. I don't know. I mean.
I'm going to go to you, Brad, to answer that, and then it's Councillor Carlson's turn.
Sure. I think there may be still opportunity I know Graham and I have had separate discussions with the proponent. Who knows their rationale for submitting the application when they did it? Could have been in response to the notice of motion. So it might be now they see an olive branch extended, but through us with this site-specific WZ3, there might be an opportunity to make design changes for what they've submitted to the Crown still.
Councillor Carlson and then Councillor, oh, sorry, Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to clarify or augment one point Brad made, in follow-up to the conversations Brad and I have had with the proponent, I did ask the proponent outright in writing if their application to the Crown was in response to the notice of motion. I just want to say for the record, they responded that it was not. They weren't aware of the original notice of motion, and they're responding later on when they became aware of later council dialogue on this. So I just wanted to clarify that point for council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carlson and then Councillor Van Elfen.
I think we have to be cautious that we're not making this look like we're now, when the motion, it says council wants to make a site-specific zone, but we want the proponent to tell us what that's going to look like. That's what that looks like to me, and I have a problem with that. I think that we need to tell the proponent where we don't want a marina built, and then find out if that works for them, and figure out how to fit as many slips as they need, and if they can even do it based on the access or the lack of access from their location. So I guess that's where I have a challenge, is that I think we know where we don't want boats to be moored, and I think that that's the most important piece of this, and somehow that has to be presented as this is what council and I think the community don't want to see. So how can we work around this and work together so that you get some of what you do need, and we also end up in a happy situation instead of having a big battle over whether or not there's going to be moorage right in front of the Rackets Club and that beautiful piece of parkland.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just think with this option that, going through the public hearing process may help our planning staff and the proponent, like to be able, they'll be able to hear from the public what the concerns may be, and that may, then again, they may have to work harder with their neighbors if they want to try to get something passed and through. So I think it's an opportunity. I don't see it as a deterrent whatsoever. I think it's a learning for me and for everyone else that we can hear from the public, and then the proponent can make some decisions or revisions and go forward with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I just wanted to add to that, Councillor Van Elfen. I think it's a little dangerous to presume that we know what the public thinks, and even to presume that we know what each of the people sitting around this council table thinks about this. And so if we're taking this forward as a site-specific WZ3, again, it has to come back to the council table for first and second reading. So we have a say, we have more of a say there. Operationally, we leave that to operations, and then we have the public hearing. He still has to come back to us for third reading, just like we saw tonight in every public hearing. We have the option then to say, nope, this doesn't work for us, doesn't work for our community. So it's not like whatever comes forward is, it's kind of out of our hands, and it's out of the hands of the public. And I would say again, that's why I like this option, because encourages collaboration and potential partnerships all along the way. And then ultimately, the decision is made by council. Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, just a question, if I may. What would the time frame be for holding a public hearing, getting to the point where we actually hold a public hearing for option 3 compared to options 1 or 2?
Yeah, through the chair, that's to Councillor Holmes. That's a good question. I think it will take us more time now to create the site-specific zone and internally. It's to something that we feel at the staff level comfortable bringing forward. I think in terms of process for this, we could follow our complete development application process for rezonings, which would include a public information meeting before we even bring it forward to council to get some public consideration to what's being proposed, and then to an advisory planning commission, and then to council if that's what council wants us to do, or we could bring it forward directly back to council if that would be preferable.
Just a comment, if I may. It sounds like a great opportunity for a delaying tactic.
I don't often say this, but Councillor Holmes, I think that was an unfair thing to say and direct it to staff.
I'm not directing it to staff.
Who are you directing it to?
Well, to the proponent. You know, we want to hear, I think, I feel we could let this slip away, and by the time that we end up having a public hearing, it'll be too late. The province will have continued, will have done their process, and you know, Councillor Barkwell brought this forward initially because the process was already underway, and we were saying, oh, hold on a second here, let's hear from the public, and now we're creating another process which will just delay further our opportunity to hear from the public. So I just see it as complicating the issue. It's no slight against staff at all. It's just we're just making a longer process when I think time is a bit of an essence here.
Well, perhaps Mr. Dolovitz's suggestion that at the wish of council, they could have an information meeting that the public would attend and get a better feel of what it is that the council or that the public may think in terms of moving forward to the public hearing level. So almost like an information meeting ahead of time, that would be one way of potentially anyways, smoothing the process or picking up the pace on that process. I mean, if it comes back and there's, you know, very loudly, absolutely not, then it'll come back to council and then we can go from there. Go ahead.
I guess what I'm really struggling with here is I don't see what the incentive is for the proponent to participate in this process. I just don't see it.
Okay, Councillor Barkwell, and then Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Holmes raises a very good point. When he said those words, it's a delay. I understood him completely to mean that the proponent may not cooperate very well with staff, and so I think we can solve that problem and say, look, you got to come back to a plan with us with a plan that we can discuss and put on the table by a certain date. And if they don't have anything to say by then, we'll put forward our own thing that we might think we should take to the public. And you know, we're in the driver's seat here, and we got to keep driving. And it's unfortunate that marinas and their implications and everything were never given public consideration before, but now we're alerted to the situation, and we gotta get, well, I think the time is of the essence here. And so now I don't know if we need to amend the motion to say on a public open house is just going to delay the process and not really resolve anything for us. I think we want to go straight to a public hearing.
Okay, I'm going to ask Brad, just like the setbacks that Councillor Barkwell spoke about before, could this be, can't remember the word that was used before, but could this be part of what we're stipulating in as part of the site specific, is that we want to have a plan by a certain date?
You can give staff any direction for when you'd like to see something brought back forward to council, and we'll try to achieve those dates.
Okay. No, I'm sorry, I wasn't talking about the work that the district has to do. I'm talking more about making sure that you can get onto your work because you have a plan from the proponent. Because my understanding is that there's only just a conceptual plan at this point that the district has seen.
Yeah, that's correct. It's conceptual only. I think that we'll endeavor to engage with the proponent and as well come up with our own staff recommendation. We wouldn't just be listening to the proponent and abiding to whatever they are indicating to us. We'd look at the OCP policy as our guidance for coming forward with a recommended site-specific zone that would achieve what we're hearing from council tonight and their wishes. What we think, at least what we're hearing, and then we'll try to bring that forward back as soon as we can. Now, if we can reprioritize our projects depending on if council gives us a set date to come back with. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Could I ask that council extend the meeting? Please come forward with the resolution and provide a time. We reached our 3-hour mark. And then I'll go to Councillor Patton. Councillor Barkwell?
All right, I move that we extend the meeting to 9:30.
Okay.
Can I get a nod from staff that would be enough? Thanks.
Yeah. Did you want to say something, Graham? Or? Okay. So seconder, please. Councillor Patton, all in favor? Okay. Graham, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to sort of convey to council, these provincial review timelines are long. So typically they're looking at a 2, sometimes 3-year review period for something of this complexity. And they themselves have indicated they recognize a lot of complexity. And so I just want to first of all say, I don't think we're going to see a marina sort of pop up there in the next month. But because that's a serious concern of council that I'm hearing, I think one option for us is to actually notify the province if council were to make a decision of this nature, that what the nature of the decision was, that zoning may be changing or clarity might be added within that zone on a site-specific basis. They do say in their, and this is the senior land official from Flinrow and Kamloops in their email, it's in council's package, the agency does support efforts by local government to manage foreshore development, and they have no concerns about the possible rezoning amendments. So I think they're already aware of that. We can confirm with them. And it may be also that we encourage the proponent in this case to convey from their end to the province that they're aware that council is working through a process that could impact their application that might need to be resubmitted. And the last thing I'll say is just a word for the proponent. While they do have sort of strong perspectives on what they believe their business needs are and the needs are for customers from their perspective, they have been very responsive to us. So we haven't been chasing them, and when we do need to talk to them, They readily are available and are happy to attend the offices here for these kinds of conversations. So I think if a timeline was picked, my view anyways, in our limited interactions with them, they'd probably be pretty happy to collaborate on a timeline. Whether or not we achieved consensus on something ultimately would be decided at a later time, but I do think they are responsive to our requests.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you don't mind, I'm just going to be a bit of a devil's advocate. Councillor Barkwell would like the property lines of the adjacent properties brought out into the water, and Councillor Carlson was also talking in regards to the park in front of the Rackets Court. When we take a look at option 2 or WZ2, Water Zone 2, it almost matches everything that the Water Zone 3 does, but it leaves open the Water Zone 3 for the proponent to go to the province. We haven't, whatever his ideal of whatever he wants to do there, we're not hindering it in one little bit. What we're going to be doing is doing a zoning amendment in front of the next property, which would be the Rackets Court or the tennis courts. So realistically, when we look at this, Roland, could you put it to 2 for me, please? So when you take a look at, yeah, there we go, thank you. So when you take a look at this, we could do the public hearing on WZ2. There would be no stalling on it because we don't have to wait for the proponent. The proponent can work with WZ3 because we're not changing that zoning. It gives us an option. It also meets the WZ as far as the alignment with the OCP, the Marina, the public use, the private dock. Everything is exactly the same as Water Zone 3, but we don't need to engage with the proponent at this point, and it does give us a chance to get public input in regards to that zone, to the WZ2 zone. And again, if it doesn't work, we can always go through the process, and if that's not the will of our constituents, that they feel that should be something different than WZ2, then it gives us the option to move there, but we're not hindering the proponent. Anyways, I was trying to mediate everybody. I thought that was not a bad job. I thought I got it all together.
I would argue that that does hinder the proponent, but we're not going to talk anymore about that. Okay, we're talking about we're talking about site-specific WZ3, option 3. I'm going to call a vote. If it gets defeated, then you can bring option 2, or whomever can bring whatever option they want, even one that they create out of thin air. I think that we've kind of gone around in circles here. We're back at square 2. So I'm going to call the vote. We're looking at option 3, site-specific WZ3. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Patton. Okay, so that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
So have we addressed the question of timelines properly? Is it some direction we can give to staff that we would like to hear back by, say, early December, early November? What sort of, could I hear from staff on when would be a good time to talk about this?
Yeah, through the chair. It really depends on the process that council wants us to look at, but if we're going to go through a public information meeting and another review by our advisory planning commission of whatever site-specific zone we're recommending we put forward to council for consideration, then I think we would need a minimum of 3 months, which is our target time frame for processing a zoning amendment for applicants for going through the same process.
So into January then, because we're at the end of September, really.
Yeah, we could shoot for January 1st and try to see if we can get it completed.
Okay. And Graham, based on what you said a few minutes ago, it's not like it's just going to happen in that short of a time frame?
It's our understanding, Madam Mayor, that there's significant backlog in the province right now with processing not only of these requests, but many requests under provincial authority as relating to the water. I would still recommend to council that and we can go ahead and do this if there's a general agreement. I think we should notify the province that this is underway. And I still think we should encourage the proponent to also notify the province. So both parties are saying the province and effectively what that would do when you're facing a mountain of paperwork and queue, they'll work on something else while we sort this through.
And so I would think that you would be speaking to the proponent just to let them know about this. And then you will be making a suggestion, maybe strong suggestion, that they notify the province just as you're going to do on behalf of council? Yeah, okay. Okay, so that doesn't really answer your question about timeline, except maybe early January. Does that work for you, Councillor Barkwell? Okay. And Brad and Graham, if it comes to the point where, and I guess Joanne is deeply involved in this as well, if it comes to a point where it means pushing something else back, rearranging your priorities, just, you know, do what you need to do, I guess. Thanks. Okay, now a couple of quick bylaws for adoption. 10.1 zoning amendment bylaw number 2019-026 at 5010 Croyle Avenue.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we just jumped over agenda item 9.5.
Oh, I'm sorry. 9.5 Development Services Monthly Update. Thank you, Kendra.
Yeah, the most exciting report. You guys are one that you're looking forward to the most, I'm sure.
No, we are.
I'm just bugging.
This month's
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So next slide, please, Roland. For planning applications, I'll just roll through this quickly. We continuing from the trend from July, we are seeing just a bit of a slowdown in the summer months for planning and subdivision applications being submitted. There hasn't been that many. There's been a few in August, but we had not as much as the trend we were seeing in the early part of the year. However, we are still getting a significant amount of development variance permits. So we're going to monitor that trend and seeing if the improvements we made to our zoning bylaw are helping or not over the next year and a bit. And if need be, you can bring back further changes perhaps to the zoning bylaw based on the number of variances being sought. Next slide, please. As the councillor alluded to, August has been a record month for the District of Summerland in terms of construction value that has been issued, and actually was mainly due to the issuance of the Oasis 3-building mixed-use residential commercial development in the month of August. You can see our total construction value for the month was over 27 million, and you can see our averages for other Augusts in the past for the month. So I can tell you that the majority of that was around just over $23 million total construction value was afforded or provided to the district in our local economy from that one project. In addition to that as well, the one project provided $192,882 in building permit fee revenue for the district. So as a result of that one permit, we are projecting that both our revenue and our construction value will probably be record years, I would think, for the District of Summerland in 2021 if we maintain the current pace we're at right now. Next slide. In terms of bylaw enforcement, we're seeing more files again being provided to our bylaw enforcement team in August. July was a explosion, I would say, in terms of number of files generated. We had 160 roughly. July, we're back down to somewhat more manageable number of 110 complaint files provided, and to a total of 762. But still quite significant amount of workload because that represents an average of 3 complaints submitted per day by our bylaw enforcement team. And majority of those complaints, as you can see, were for the traffic bylaw as well as the good neighbor bylaw, the new one that was recently adopted by council. And next slide. And here's just our total based on the total to year to date based on the different bylaw areas. And just in terms of a final plug, given that the public is also watching, I do want to also plug that we're going to be releasing 2 public surveys to the community this week, one for short-term rentals and then the other for the BC Energy Step Code and Building Bylaw Review projects. So we're excited to be releasing both those surveys this week. And so if you're interested in providing your input on both those items, we're looking forward to hearing from you. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, council? Could someone bring this forward to receive for information, please? Councillor Patton, Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Thank you. Now we go on to the bylaws for adoption. 10.1, it's zoning amendment bylaw number 2019-026 for 5010 Croyle Avenue. And this is for adoption. Councillor Holmes and seconded by Councillor Carlson. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous, Kendra. And 10.2, official community plan amendment bylaw number 2020-019 and zoning amendment bylaw number 2020-020 for 2107 Tate Street. This is the motel. Councillor Van Elfen, Councillor Holmes, all in favor? Thank you. Nothing arising from committee of the whole or closed. Any notice of motion? All right, information items, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of correspondence. Anything, oh no, 10 pieces of correspondence. Anything that people would like to bring forward? All right, could we receive the correspondence for information? Councillor Patton and Councillor Barkwell, all in favor? No committee or commission minutes? Good, we've got 12 minutes to go through our councillor reports. I'm sure there's nobody up at this hour wanting to speak to us. Okay, Councillor Barkwell.
I'll make it quick. No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Patton.
I'll make it quick. Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Just want to say that yesterday I went downtown to the extended version of the farmers market, which included the fall fair and the folks who want to keep that going. And they did a really great job. And it was well attended and a lot of fun. And I think the vendors also appreciated having the fall fair help promote the fact that that market was going on. And glad that it kept going. And I hope that next year it will be similar, but perhaps bigger and even better.
And COVID-free.
Let's hope.
Yes. Good. Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Holmes.
No, nothing. Just that I'll have the last week's RDUS meeting as a written report for next meeting.
Next meeting. Okay, thank you. Councillor Van Elfen.
I want to thank everybody for giving me the last 10 minutes. because I'm going to need it. No, I'm just kidding. It's been brought to my attention. I'd like to pass this on to our CEO so he can pass it on to the appropriate staff. Our floral arrangements in Summerland this year are spectacular. The roundabouts, the hanging baskets, I would just please ask our CEO to pass it on to his staff. It's phenomenal. You mentioned it earlier. I just want to also kudos to Councillor Barkwell's much better half, Teresa, for the incredible fall display in our downtown core. I just read online, Madam Mayor, on Facebook, so you got to believe it. There is a vaccination clinic tomorrow at the library from 2 till 6, and no appointments are necessary. So please, if you haven't been vaccinated, do your family and your friends and your neighbors a favor. Also, I'd just like to add on what Councillor Carlson said, the farmers market / fall fair was a wonderful collaboration of people working together for one common good, and that's Summerland. So my hat's off to all the people that were involved in that. And I sold out on farm fresh eggs, so it was lovely. And one other final thing, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to the Leckie family for the mural that has been put on the middle school building depicting inclusivity, anti-racism, and we all belong. And I just think it's a spectacular piece of art and a wonderful addition to our community. And with that, I'm done and we can go home.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Councillor Barkwell, seconded by Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor?